to me is a continuation of a conversation that we had on Thursday's Aaron Torres Sports Podcast about the state of Alabama football. And if you remember on Thursday's show, we led with this idea of something just is not right with Alabama football. We had the weird Will Anderson comments about, the team having anxiety coming out of the tunnel, just not something you would normally hear from an Alabama football player. We had fans all week long blaming the refs for why Alabama lost when you had 17 penalties against the best offense in college football. You gave them 130 free penalty yards. And we also talked very briefly about the video of Jermaine Burton, Alabama wide receiver, having some sort of physical contact walking off the field with a female Tennessee fan. We talked about it. I told you to go watch the video, but there is video of Jermaine Burton, wide receiver, Alabama. A female Tennessee fan walks by him, and I don't know exactly what he did. The video is grainy, but it appears as though he, at the very least, pushes her, shoves her, whatever term you want to use. And if you want to take it a step further, we don't know, but there's a possibility. Is it a punch? We don't know. But there was some kind of physical altercation. And I was thinking about that as I finished recording, because as I finished recording, Nick Saban announced what Jermaine Burton's punishment would be. They said on Wednesday morning, they were collecting facts. Wednesday night, Nick Saban says, we are going to handle things internally. But then he also said, and I think this is important, he basically deflected blame and said, this is why we shouldn't have fans on the field after games. And so I think everybody kind of knows where I stand on all this stuff. No, I'm not opposed to fans being on the field. Yes, I understand that it presents a risk to both fans and players. I get all that. But at the same time, we also have pretty indisputable video of an Alabama football player at best shoving a female Tennessee fan, at worst potentially punching her. And all we got from the coach was it's going to be handled internally. We shouldn't have fans on the field. That's that. And nobody has said anything. And so I will generally say this. It's not often that something happens in sports that I feel like is undercovered, but I feel like this is being totally undercovered. I don't think the media is doing a good enough job of asking tough questions, of holding Nick Saban accountable. And I'll just ask a pretty straightforward question. Is Nick Saban getting a pass for how he is handling the situation? And I want to be fair, and I want to kind of look at it from both sides. And what I would say is a couple things as it pertains to kind of the fans on the field interaction. I do understand that I'm not anti-fans rushing the field, but I do understand that when fans do rush the field, it sets up a scenario where you have this. You have 85 football players on the field. There's no way you can get all 85 guys to the tunnel without any interactions with fans at all. And one thing I would say that I've come around on over the last couple of years is the idea that just because you don't like a football player in the jersey that he's wearing, or a basketball player in the jersey that he is wearing, doesn't mean he can say whatever you want. And it certainly doesn't mean he can do whatever you want, push, shove, dump stuff from the tunnel. I mean, we've seen that in the NBA over the last few years, dumping popcorn, throwing beer, throwing stuff on the court of play, Kyrie Irving a few years ago. And so I have come a long way in terms of my thoughts on, you got to, once you're a fan, once you enter that field of play, especially if you enter that field of play, this kind of stuff happens. And then on top of that, what I would also say is that certainly if you're not on the court of play, it doesn't give you a right to throw stuff, do stuff, this and that. And what I would finally say as it pertains to Jermaine Burton specifically, I do think it's important to note, like, the video is a little bit grainy. And again, we don't really know, is it a push? Is it a shove? Is it a punch? Is it a this? Is it that? So those are important contextual things. But I think on the other side, there are some important contextual things as well. One, while I am against any fans feeling that they have the right because they bought a ticket to push, shove, punch, throw stuff at players, this was not that on Saturday. The video is pretty vague. The video is not clear. But one thing that you can see, this young lady decided to walk to the side of this guy. Her intention, it appears, I'm not claiming to put myself in her head, she did not appear to go on the field looking to start you-know-what with Alabama players. If you see it, she tries to walk by and he reaches out to touch her. Go back and watch the video. This is not me being overly dramatic, trying to create some headline that isn't there. Go back and look. She tries to get out of the way and he reaches out to her. So do not tell me that this is one of those blame the fans, it's all the fans' fault, fans shouldn't be on the field. We can debate whether fans should be on the field. We cannot debate that from the video that we have, Jermaine Burton initiated the contact. And that's the second point. Jermaine Burton initiated the contact. We have video of an Alabama player physically touching another woman, and that's never okay. I think we all kind of understand that. That's never okay. And so this idea that everybody in the media is giving it a pass is just mind-boggling to me. And I think I said it to lead this segment. I know we're only like 4 minutes into the show. I don't remember if I talked about it, but there are so few things in life that I am genuinely surprised by. And I'm not, by the way, I think most guys and girls, if you listen to this show, you know I'm not Mr. Outrage, Mr. Get Mad about everything. But most people in the media are. I mean, we live in a world where everybody is constantly outraged by everything, where everybody is constantly accusing someone of something, intentions, this, that, the other thing. And you have video of a football player physically touching, physically pushing, physically shoving, whatever it is, a female, and nobody's saying anything. I was blown away. After I signed off, after I finished the show on Wednesday night, I assumed I'd go on Twitter or go on social media and see people crushing Nick Saban, crushing Jermaine Burton. I saw next to nothing. And so first of all, let me say this. Yeah, shame on Nick Saban. I'm going to say it. He's the greatest coach in my life. He's the best to ever do it. He's the best probably that I will ever see. But at the end of the day, I'd like to know a little bit more about what you're planning on doing, okay? Or at the very least, this is what I would say. I would like to know what you know about Jermaine Burton, right? Because you said it's a disciplinary issue. You said you're handling things internally. So it's clear that he did something wrong. So for anybody that's trying to say he did nothing wrong, this girl initiated, this girl said something, this girl did that. Well, why are we disciplining him then? If she is 100% to blame, then at some point, probably he shouldn't be being held accountable. But it's clear he did something wrong. So from Nick Saban, I want to know what he did. But then two, on top of that, I also want to know a couple other things. What is the punishment? What is going on? Why do you feel the need to hold him accountable? And also from Nick Saban, can we forget the whole, well, this is why we shouldn't have fans on the field? It had nothing to do with that. The video that we have shows Jermaine Burton reaching out and pushing this girl, shoving this girl, maybe even punching this girl, depending on how you view the video. And I don't even want to be overly dramatic, but I'm just saying we have clear video that something happened. So don't blame fans on the field. Don't blame the fans here because it's not the fans' fault. She was going to celebrate. She was going to, I don't know, tear down a goalpost or do something on the field. She wasn't there to pick a fight with Jermaine Burton. Give me a break. Watch the video. She's stepping aside. And so if he did something wrong, I think we need to know what it is. Two, I will blame the media on this one. Now, listen, I don't cover Alabama on a day-to-day basis. I understand there are relationships you have to maintain, and I understand being a beat writer ain't easy, okay? It's a thankless job, especially covering Alabama, especially with Nick Saban, because you say the wrong thing, you're going to get yelled at, whatever. But at the same time, nobody thought to ask any of these follow-up questions. Nobody thought to say, well, what exactly is internal? Is that a game? Is that a season? Is that a this? Is that a that? Because the one thing I'll tell you is this, and I don't mean to be overly dramatic about this, but I was talking to somebody about this on Thursday morning. If that video literally comes from anywhere else, Jermaine Burton shoving a woman, if that video comes from anywhere else, if it comes from a bar, if it comes from a nightclub, if it comes from a restaurant, if it comes from walking the street, Jermaine Burton's probably off of the team and maybe never playing football again. And so the idea that we don't even bother to ask, like, oh, what is the punishment? Oh, is he going to be back? Like, is he going to be back in the second half this weekend against Mississippi State? Is he suspended at all? Does he have to run stairs? Because to me, this is kind of a big deal. You have an Alabama player, again, physically touching a female Tennessee fan. And I'm sorry, like, I need better than we're going to handle this internally. I'm not saying Nick Saban has to kick him off the team. I'm not saying the kid should never be able to play again. But again, if this video comes out somewhere else, isn't the punishment probably a little bit different? Isn't the outrage a little bit different? And this is the frustrating part about me. Frustrating part about the media, excuse me. One thing about me, I try to be fair on both sides. I mean, I've obviously been as complimentary of Nick Saban as anybody that I've ever talked about on this show because all the guy does is win. But I'm not going to give him a pass. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that just because he's Nick Saban. He messed up here. And by the way, I talked about it in May with the Jimbo Fisher stuff, and I'm not comparing one to the other. But when Nick Saban screws up, I call him out on it, and I'm doing the same here. And so it is just amazing to me that in this outrage culture that we live in, that we have this video and nobody thinks to like ask tough questions or call out Nick Saban or call out Jermaine Burton. It is so bizarre to me. I don't get it. It is like mind-numbing to me that this is not a bigger deal than it is. And I do think that Nick Saban is ultimately getting a pass for how he's handling this.